welcome to the retreat here on the Palm. Now, the retreat wellness here on the Palm is the only 5-star wellness hotel in the region. So I'd really like to invite you, and thank you for coming to Rayya's Talks, which are a series of talks where we're really celebrating International Women's Day. But Rayya's Talks was set up really by Shaper Rayya. Now, as we are celebrating International Women's Day, I would like to introduce you to our first guest. And our first guest is Ashley. And it is all about celebrating our achievements and really looking at how we can empower and how we can really motivate women and help with choices and be the best role models that we can be for future generations. That's so much what this is about today. So thank you very much for coming. And I suppose my first question to you is that you are representing Baby Expo, which is a huge event that's going to happen here in May at the World Trade Center. So how does that work? Being a mother, being within setting up this business, and all these hats that you have to wear. So how does that work?
So yeah, it's a little bit crazy at times, and I went into launching the Baby Expo straight from maternity leave after my second baby. So my first baby I had back in the UK, and then my husband got a transfer back out to Dubai. So I had to leave my job in the UK, and I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know if I want to go back into corporate. It's really long hours, there's a lot of travelling, having 2 children, not having my parents around the corner is tough. And I'd always wanted to do something that was mine and that I could say I had done on my own. So just walking with my little boy around Dubai Hills Park, I kind of had the idea. And I remember going for a walk with my husband and saying, you know, I really, really want to do this. And I thought he'd be like, okay, you're crazy. But he wasn't. He was so supportive, and he was like, okay, like, go away, come back with a plan, like, tell me how you think this could look, like, I'll support you 100%. So I did. Sat when my little boy was napping, went through, researched, and found that there was such a massive gap in the market. There's so many amazing consumer events and mummy events that are amazing when you're out here, you're on your own, you don't have your parents, you don't have your family around the corner, but there's not one huge event that brings everyone together, that really supports that journey that you're going on to becoming a parent or having your second or third baby. So yeah, I felt there was a massive gap in the market for that. And I was applying for jobs at the same time to go back to kind of being in that corporate world. And my husband was like, if you don't take the chance now, you're just always going to think, what if, what if? So yeah.
It's quite interesting. There's 2 things that you really touched upon. And in my practice, every single day, I do see that. I see where, as expat families, where they don't have the support of their family, it's much harder. Absolutely. It's much harder where we don't have that support. And equally, your husband really stepping up and really supporting you, that was huge. Because the whole point here, in terms of International Women's Day, it's not to bring any exclusion. That's not what International Women's Day is about. And I think we have actually succeeded in that over the years. I think at the beginning, men were very much, well, we don't have an International Men's Day, so why? But I really do see that the more we really understand that when we're working as a team, that's when we work at our best. So you'll have noticed that one of our guests is a male today, which I also thought was really important because it is about inclusion. And that's what I think one of the greatest gifts that Dubai has, is that it's very inclusive.
I would absolutely agree with that, and I think it really takes a team. We always say, you know, juggling 2 children, both working full time, setting up the Baby Expo. I definitely wouldn't be able to do that without him, but also he wouldn't be able to do his job if it wasn't for me being there to pick up the kids. So, you know, I think it definitely is about supporting each other, and it really does take a team to be able to put everything together. And I think some days are manic, some days are crazy, and some days I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to do that again tomorrow. But you get to the end of the week and you're like, okay, we've done it, we've achieved that again. So yeah, I think it is so important to remember that, you know, he is my biggest supporter, and I definitely wouldn't have taken that step without him. But also I think my children as well, like, I think they've given me almost like that superpower to be like, okay, you can go and do this. They've given me, I want to make them proud, I want to do something for them, I want them to see that you can achieve anything, and if you've got a dream, then follow it. And I think maybe before them I wouldn't have been brave enough to take that step. So I definitely think they've been a bit of a superpower for me to believe that I can do it.
Now, again, this is really interesting from my perspective in that, so my mum would grow up, I heard all the time when I grow up, when I come back in this world, I'm going to come back as a man. And I remember thinking, no, I love being a woman. And again, you know, I love being able to have my children, to have my workplace, and you've just encompassed everything there. And it's not about women having it all. Again, that's not what it's about. But it is about women being able to be brave enough to make these choices. So in your journey, in terms of setting up the Baby Expo, is there something in particular that you know, one of your experiences that has really stuck, you know, a challenge that you've had with Expo, and very much about all those resources that you have as a mother, as a wife, as an expat? How has that helped? Is there one particular experience?
I think probably the biggest challenge that I've had so far was adjusting to being back at work, but not just being back at work that I could turn off my computer at night and walk away from, you know, and come back at 9 AM tomorrow morning, because this is something that I'm doing. It's almost like it's there all the time. You know, you're replying to emails at 10 o'clock at night. You don't really have that off button. And I think I thought having my own adventure and own challenge and setting up something on my own, that I would work at home and I'd be there for my children, and, you know, I'd pick them up from nursery and I could work, they could play, and you could kind of, but that really was a huge challenge, and I felt as though actually I wasn't really being the best version of me, because I was trying to work, I was trying to play with them as well, and I wasn't ever switching off from either role. So I was becoming, you know, impatient, and I think just really struggling to find that balance. So I think for me is realising that I need to go away to work, whether it be a coffee shop or whether just take myself out that house for a few hours, and then come back and be like, okay, I'm home now, I can play with you, I can give you everything that you need. So I think that probably was one of my biggest challenges, was finding that balance, going back to work. And as I said, not having my parents around the corner, not having that family network, I think, you know, you really need to find that, how that's going to work and how you're going to make everything kind of fit together. So yeah, I think that was one of my biggest challenges, is distinguishing between what was my working hours and what was the time that I was there to spend with my family.
And I think just as a community, we all really struggle with that. And I also don't think that there is a work-life balance. I think we're trying to achieve something which is not achievable. Of course, we can put checks and balances in place so that we can start to bring some kind of structure, because otherwise the burnout will happen. There's no question of it. But I think when you are so impassioned in what you want to do, then it almost becomes not quite the work that we interpret it. But it is about, first of all, being kind to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And with the on-off complete 24-hour support or expectations that we have now, it's very difficult to turn off.
Yeah.
But of course we do. I mean, I know, I don't know if maybe some of you have heard of the Huberman talks. And so Huberman is this incredible neuroscientist in America. And he said that the only way he can really switch off is either to put his phone outside in the car and work at 90-minute bounce. And that's the only way he can get really good quality work. So it's very hard. So on a parting note, what would you say to your younger self, and now as an entrepreneur to the next generation, what would you say to your younger self?
I would definitely say be kinder to yourself, because I think you come out of university, you set yourself so many challenges, I think you always kind of compare yourself with other people or what they're achieving, and everyone's journey is completely different. Some of my best friends have not had children, so they've not kind of taken that time out yet of their career, so they're doing so amazing, and I'm so proud of them. But I've almost taken those few years out to have my family, and now I feel like I'm back to, I want to be successful and I want to have an amazing career, but I also feel like I'm driven by that power to do that for my children. I want to make them proud. I want to give them the best life that I absolutely can. And I think for the future generation, I think it's being kind to yourself. Life is completely different now. The pressures of social media, the pressures of, as you said, 24 hours a day, there's not really that off button. So I think, just always follow your dreams and believe that you can. I think that's definitely the message I want to give to my children, that it doesn't matter what you would like to do, let's see how you can make it happen. Set yourself goals, do your research, and just give it your best shot.
Thank you so much, and that's really words of inspiration. Thank you. Or the venue being at Supermagnat, but it has grown exponentially, and then Supermagnat was not going to be able to house all the interest, and so it's now been moved to the World Trade Center, and there's still not enough space for people who want to come to the World Trade Center. So well done again, Ashley. So my next guest is such a fascinating lady, and again, like most women, wears many hats. So I'd like to introduce you to Iman Alawi. I always know first names, I'm sorry, 1 second, but Iman Alawi. And Iman has recently published a cookery book, which again, I think was a very courageous move too. So tell me what sparked your idea to writing this book.
Okay, good morning everyone. So first, I'm an HR professional. I've been in the HR field for more than 17 years now. And, I'm a very busy mom as well. Only one kid, but keeping me busy. I have a lot of things in my life, be it doing my program for University of Cambridge, or being on a musical, being a mom and working, and on top of that, the idea of writing a book came on a very casual discussion when I was with my friend Gemma, and I was like a little bit down at some point, questioning a little bit my life, not being kind to myself, as Ashley said rightly. And Gemma is like, hey, how about writing your book and making your passion become possible? I said, well, come on, none of that is going to happen. It's impossible. She said, nothing is impossible, Iman. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I'm going to help you with that. Believe in me. I believed in her, and here we are. So a book is being released, and it is my passion, really. I've lived in different parts of the world, in France, Morocco, and now in Dubai. And I've been inspired a lot by my mom, and she was a working mom, very hard working mom, all of her life, done fantastic in her job, and yet she would always find time to put recipes together and cook for her friends and put things in a very nice way. So I was really always inspired by my mom, and you know, my Instagram has been filled with all types of recipes all these years, and then there we go with the book.
And again, there's a couple of things there. So I do believe that as women, we really want to be advocates for all women. And when my children were small, so I've got 3, and I know they're mine, and of course I'm biased, but I'm not that biased, and they are 3 of the most incredible human beings, my 3 adult daughters. Anyway, I would really make a distinction when they were younger about whether I was in paid work or whether I was working from home. And I can remember one particular day when I was walking to school with my second daughter, and I was stood, and she's now 32, and I was stood by the garage as we were walking to school, and she asked me, she said, "So are you in paid work today, Mummy, or are you at home?" And she was 9 or 10, and it's like, yes, because the work at home is so undervalued too. And, you know, when, again with my work, and on the questionnaire there is a, you know, what is your occupation? And that's for many reasons. But, you know, when I see a mom who says, "I'm unemployed," and I just thought, no, you're not. You are probably doing, not probably, you are doing one of the most important roles that we will ever do. But to be able to go in the workplace as well, in the paid workplace, so I just think it's about making that distinction. And as you say, it's about juggling and all those hats. But also, the second thing that you say, you didn't believe that you could. And as women, and I believe I've got the biggest imposter syndrome, because it never fails to surprise me, all of the incredible things that women do.
Yeah.
And we do it quietly. We do it so quietly. And we also are not, as you said, none of us are kind enough. But I hope that's changing. I think it's changing. I think, you know, conversations that we're going to have. So going back to your book, let's have a look at some recipes, which, because we are here in Dubai, it is about diversity, but it's also about really holding on to our cultural heritage. And again, you know, me being Irish, you know, even out there, we were talking about the rugby, and it's like, ugh, South Africa beats Ireland. But it's just about having that awareness and that love of where we came from. And we can still be in different places, but still have... So tell me about the recipes, a couple of recipes which give that cultural diversity, or that you've put a new spin on.
Absolutely. So that's exactly the idea of the book, just like the title suggests, Flavors of Morocco Transcended. So I do start with my heritage, my origins, obviously Morocco, but at the same time I want to transcend them, which means I want to bring other flavors from all around the world. And when I was in France, I was so in love with all the restaurants around the world there, and I discovered really the cuisine of the world in France, because in Morocco, you know, people are more traditional than in other parts of the world. And yeah, the book is really bringing those spices from all around the world and making the Moroccan cuisine more dynamic. So of course I'm very respectful of the tradition, and I wouldn't hurt the tradition. My mom would be like, what? But at the same time, really I want to make sure that the tradition is alive, and the tradition is alive when you are making it move, when you are making it change as well, because it's bound to change. Obviously what my grandma or what my mom are doing are 2 different things, and what I'm doing is different, and what my daughter is going to do is going to be different, and so on and so forth. So really it's about moving things around and changing and being creative and innovative. And you know, the chefs around the world, that's what they do with their cuisines, right? They take...
It is. But I also think how we underestimate the importance of sitting as a family. And, you know, in this very fast world that we have here in Dubai, sometimes we forget about how just sitting and having a meal together really evokes so many memories. So I had my niece over very, very recently, and it was the first time she's been here in 6 years. And I said, "No, is there anything that you want whilst you're here?" And she said, "Do you know Auntie Julie?" And she's like, she's a teacher now, and she's 25. There was a particular dish that I cooked, and she said, when she was here 6 years ago, she said, "We've all tried to cook it back in England, and it's just not working." And again, it really, really surprised me that I cooked something 6 years ago, so we mustn't underestimate the power of food. And you see that because with your book that you put forward, you know, you have that is going to be really instrumental in lots of families sitting and eating. So what would be a favourite recipe in your book?
That's not one favorite recipe. There are many, but maybe let me bring a few of them over here while we're discussing. So I don't know if you guys like sardines, but sardines are full of protein.
Very good for sleep.
Here we go. And you know, it used to be actually food that was given to fish, bigger fish, right? So people were not eating in the past sardines. But actually sardines now is becoming so nutritional that it should be part of our life. Once a week we need to eat sardines, really.
So a little bit about sardines in that we know now about omega-3 and how important it is for brain development, hugely important. There was a wonderful study carried out in London a couple of years ago, and they were giving omega-3, unfortunately, as opposed to sardines, but sardines, and to a certain group and then not to another. And actually they had to call the study off because the children who were having the omega-3, their cognitive function increased, and Dr. Simone is agreeing, increased to such a degree that it was unethical to continue with the study. So omega-3 and the sardines, because it's building our brains, it's so, so important. So yeah, sardines, absolutely.
So on the coastal part of Morocco, they eat quite a lot, the sardines now. And actually, I am bringing that into the book because it's one of those dishes that it's not that known in Morocco. And I am adding, of course, that little touch of cherry tomatoes, colorful cherry tomatoes on it and thyme on it. So, you know, you see those condiments from other parts of the world. Cherry tomatoes is not something that we eat very frequently in Morocco. And then I'm making it more attractive and also more tasty. And for those who don't like the taste of sardines, they will find it better, probably.
And of course, we eat with our eyes.
And you eat with your eyes, absolutely. That's one of the dishes, and maybe another dish that I want to bring, because there are a lot of French today, somehow, you know. I'm kind of, yeah, some people call me the queen of the quiches, you know. I do quiches, and I do quiches of, you know what is quiche, right?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, everyone knows that. So basically I do plenty of those whenever I invite friends. It's the easy one. It's so easy to make, it's delicious, and you don't have to make the dough yourself. You just get it on the supermarkets and then you do the filling, and you do the filling, you be creative, you can be creative. So the point with my book is I took that quiche recipe and I Moroccanized it basically. So I put some spices of Morocco in it, saffron or onions, garlic, and a lot of things, actually a lot of condiments, paprika, cumin even, and you see actually it's, and there's a quiche with fish as well, which is a very unusual thing in France, for example.
You know, all these things that you're, you know, these herbs and spices that you're using, they're all really improving our gut health, the microbiome. So it's not just about flavour. It really is about improving our gut health. So, you know, having these recipes and having them accessible is so helpful. But it's also recognising that it is easy. We don't need all these masses of, and it's not going to take a lot of time.
Yes.
But also it's so therapeutic. I remember I bake a lot at home, not as much now, but when the girls were at home I would bake a lot. And one of the programmes that my daughters was watching was British Home Bake or something. I don't watch TV, but... And they kept saying, "Mummy, you've got to sit and watch." Now, this is, you know, a 20-year-old, but still, let's sit down and watch this together. So in the end, I thought, okay, it's not about me, I'll sit down and watch. And after about 3 minutes of sitting down, it's like, let's just get in the kitchen. What are we doing? Watching the TV. Let's go and make something. So I do think, as mothers, we need to really encourage our children and let them see the fun in cooking and creating.
Yeah.
So how about your daughter? Is your daughter, does she like getting in the kitchen with you?
Definitely, she loves that. But before I go into that, just 2 points that you mentioned that I liked very much. You said that it's therapeutic. It's absolutely therapeutic, basically. And cooking is something that makes you really, really, really relax. And I absolutely adore that, just because when I feel stressed at work or by any situation in life, frustrated or anything, cooking is I release my pressure. That's number one. Number two is you mentioned that it's about making the cooking easy. Yes, definitely. When I wrote the book, one of the points is, as a working mom, I don't have time to make those very fancy, big recipes that will take me, I don't know, 4 hours. So I wanted really the book, and I selected recipes that are easy to make, and I also made them even easier. For example, the couscous, and sorry for my mom, but I'm not making the couscous the traditional way where you have to steam it 3 times and work with it in between, and it takes 4 hours just for the couscous itself, grains to cook. So the point is, when you go to any supermarket here, you have this couscous that you can make in 5 minutes. You just pour hot water on it, and then you play with it with butter or with olive oil, depending on what recipes you choose. And actually, the end result is exactly the same. If I do a blind test for my mom, I'm sure she's not going to recognize which one is which. So I'm really simplifying those recipes for working moms and working dads, because let's not forget about working dads as well. They can also go into the kitchen. And back to my daughter, and also for kids, those recipes, you can very much do them with your kids because they're simple, and we know that the attention span of the kids is quite little, so you can very much do those recipes with small kids because it's not going to take you ages.
Another area where, as women, we really try and support women, but also because we know what it's like trying to, spin all these plates, which at times is to our detriment if we're looking within the corporate world, if we're looking, because we don't have that ability to be so focused where our male colleagues, they do, but it's about complementing one another, isn't it? So, as a final question, and again looking at, your childlike self, as to where you are now in this world of being an author, having a very successful career in HR, and being a mother, what would you say to that childlike self of yours?
Very interesting question. Just go and do it, something that you said that is very interesting, and I just saw a reel recently about that. You know why women, basically, women have more will than anybody, because, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And women actually, when they say they will do something, they end up doing it. So the point is, if you have a passion in life, just pursue it. And if I have to talk to myself a few years back, it's just pursue your passion, and believe in yourself, that's it.
I mean, that, again, on that note, it's such a beautiful note in that, just do it. And that is going to propel you. But also, in terms of our children, it's a really great role model. Just do it. Stop procrastinating and just do it.
Yeah.
And I do believe, so many times I've heard in the corporate world, and from my husband Kieran, that if he wants to get something done, you ask a woman. And that's just so thank you so much, Iman. Now, you're going to be doing some cooking.
Yes. And I'd like to tell everyone who wants to buy my book, it's already on pre-sale on uhibbook.com. The Uhib Book lady is over here. You can ask her where. So yes, I'm going to be having a live session over there, so come and join me whenever you can.
So I wish you well with the sale of your book and everything that you endeavour for now.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you.
Dr. Simone, there's a number of things that Dr. Simone is involved with. Dr. Simone is a naturopathic doctor. Now, there's so many, I think I'm going to let you do it.
Of what I do? Yeah, so I've been a naturopathic doctor for 25 years, been based out of Abu Dhabi for about 8 years from London. We still have our clinics in Harley Street and Wimpole Street in the UK. We had the business with my husband. We got married and we put our clinics together 20 years ago. And then moved out to Abu Dhabi 8 years ago and then launched the business here too. And out of 25 years ago, so I'm half Aussie, half English, and I moved to London. I escaped to London from severe domestic violence. I've got 3 missing teeth. Lucky to be alive, and as a result moved to London and had anorexia and bulimia. And I started to formulate my own supplements born out of my own desire to get well, because I couldn't get well. I couldn't find what I needed to get healed. So in addition to being a practitioner, I went on a quest to formulate my own vegan plant-based supplements, which back then didn't exist. Now it's all cool, but 25 years ago it didn't exist. It's fresh and wild in the UK. There was a few little things, but not much.
Now, the first time that we met was at an event.
Yes.
And I never met Dr. Simone before, and we got talking, and your story was so fascinating. It was, for me, it was far less about your supplements, even though, seriously, I have been using the supplements, and I know that my sleep is deeper with the particular balance that you have. So the supplements are really beautiful, but it was your story that was so compelling, because what I loved about it was that you didn't hide from it, you know. And that's what we need to do as women. We need to stop hiding from these stories. And only then, when we stop hiding, that we can give the space and the freedom for other women.
Yes.
And it is International Women's Day. And so it's very much about celebrating all women. So that I found very fascinating, about how you really just were so open and honest about your story, but it also didn't let it define you. You, through a series of who you are, but again, your family. Family are so important, aren't they? They're your rock.
Yes.
We like to think, yeah, we don't need them, we can do it, I'm an adult now, but actually, they're the very foundations of who we are. And again, that's what International Women's Day has to be celebrated for, recognising all the positives of who we are. So, you have to balance many, many things. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, because they're both quite different, but equally as a mother of 3 young children. You've got, like you say, clinics in London and clinics here, so that's a lot. So how do you manage that in terms of managing all of them?
Yeah, well, I used to be a workaholic and had breast cancer 7 years ago. And when the breast cancer came, because I have a PhD in cancer, so I was like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense, because I used to joke and say I married my husband with 3 DHL trucks of trauma, and he came into the marriage with an overnight bag. So when the cancer lump came, I was like, oh yeah, I never dealt with the trauma. Okay, because cancer, I always say, is a wonderful servant but a horrible master. It's always here to teach us something if we just listen. So before 7, 8 years ago, I was a bit of a workaholic, and I was a bit of a blur having 3 kids in 5 years. But that really taught me the kind of work-life balance, if you like, that I realised that if I'm not okay, then actually nothing is going to be okay. And even this morning, we're running a retreat at Sofitel next door. We did sunrise yoga, and it's all part of every morning without fail. I get up and I take a moment to pray and to connect with myself and make sure my cup is full, because otherwise I'm shouting at the kids, or everyone gets the worst of me and I get the worst of me. So I feel by me, in fact, with all the different train wrecks of my life, I always come back to our Rejuve 7 pillars of wellness. And it's about taking a step back and making sure that I'm in flow. So yes, we need to eat well, nutrition. We must sleep well, otherwise all the wheels fall off the trolley. And the mindfulness is key to make sure that I'm connecting with myself and God, whatever your belief is, your spiritual health, your mind, body and spirit need to be healthy. I need to make sure I'm moving my body. When I had eating disorders, it would be a punishment for what I'd done the day before. Now I'm very gentle with myself, and I make sure I have a regular massage and things like that. So I make sure those 7 main components of my life are in flow. And if even one of my best friends passed away a couple of years ago, and I hit the wall, and I had to call myself into my office, sit myself down, look at those 7 things. Even on our website, you can do a free quiz, look at your top 3. But just keeping it simple, coming back, making sure I'm okay. And if I'm okay, my kids are okay, my husband is okay, it all tends to flow. The business is easy. I can pour out like a waterfall, I suppose. But if I'm not okay, then I give myself empty, then I end up sick, like when I had the cancer lump.
But presumably that okay has different degrees of okay.
Yeah.
And again, with 3 young children and the business, that's a really hard thing to manage. And yes, we are wanting to work from our cup being full.
Yeah.
But what would you say would be one of the main elements, not that you can bring together? So it's not about our cup being full, because again, we want to make sure that trying to have that full cup is almost really hard to manage at times. So trying to convey how recognizing when our cup is becoming depleted as opposed to full, because then
always being filled, because like your to-do list, it'll never be finished. So we got to lay that down. It'll always be a rolling list. And same thing with our energy levels and with life. I think if we're always open to being refreshed and we pour out, it's never, you're right, you're never full. You're in this constant flux of receiving and then being able to pour out. And I think that's where I'm connected with my divine feminine, and I'm, whatever your belief is, but I really make sure my mind, body and spirit are healthy. And I do things on purpose with self-compassion, and I don't run myself on the hamster wheel like I used to. I give myself a break,
And so often when we're talking about self-compassion or self-care, it feels, to a mother, like yesterday, for example, a mother I went to, her little one is 16 weeks old. And since that child was born via a C-section, emergency C-section, having been in labour, having been in labour for 22 hours, and then a C-section, this mummy has had a contact nap for 16 weeks with her baby. So she has not slept. And, when I was talking to her yesterday, not wanting at all to add to this feeling of inadequacy which she had in its bucket load, it was, we're going to start really, really small. And what I want for you to do is to just go out and sit on the balcony with 1 cup of tea, and that's self-care. And it's just about recognising that all these elements of self-care are very measurable if we can just start.
And even just your breath. So I often, with my clients, use this little acronym that I created where I teach my clients to purr, where you pause, you exhale, and you respond. That is a massive gift to yourself, because otherwise you're constantly in the fight or flight and emergency mode. Everything is amplified. And just by gifting that small breath before you, in a critic or an external trigger, even just something that's for free, but just gifting myself and honouring myself that I deserve that breath, then to respond, or the email comes in, and you're kind of like, no, I'm just maybe going to have that cup of tea, I'm going to take a moment, or get up and set the alarm 10 minutes earlier, and just lay in bed. Lay there, to do anything, just lay there 5 minutes, and just feel think and feel. I'm doing another PhD in neuroscience now, so neuroplasticity. Think it and feel it. Think and feel the gratitude, even just one thing. I'm thankful that I have feet that can carry me around. Keep it really simple. Think it and feel it. Take a moment. and then start your day. So all of us, even with busy kids, you know, just 5 minutes, those small little bites.
So with this mummy, who, as I said, hasn't been outside, they went out twice and then it was too much and she has to come back.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And I was reminding her about, or letting her know about the importance of going out for a little walk.
Yes.
Because there is a part of the brain and also within the cavity of the eye.
Yes, the amygdala.
And it calms the amygdala.
Yeah.
It calms the amygdala down.
Yeah.
So it reduces anxiety.
Yes.
Now, who would have thought, when we're out walking and we have the movement of the right and the left of the eye and people coming towards us and people moving away,
yes,
that is actually calming the amygdala right down.
Medicine.
It is. And very much all your work is around looking for medicine, which goes beyond, you know, the chemical, the prescriptive medicine, because there is a lot of value out there in wanting to heal ourselves, which you are a huge component of wanting to heal yourself. Now, working within your field of naturopathic medicine, and also, I mean, now that I didn't know about you now doing your PhD, your second one, but that's what I think is so wonderful about the human brain, is that we keep learning, and that's what's going to enable us to understand so much more, and when we understand, then we can bring it forward. But within your field of your work, can you think of a couple of challenges or anything in particular that has stood out now that you are working as an entrepreneur, particularly with being International Women's Day? What would be something that you would work at to empower women?
I think encouraging all of us that we are women and the 80s are over, shoulder pads are gone, and we don't have to, sorry for the French, we're not supposed to have testicles. We have ovaries, and we can be in all of our glory, and all of our gold is in the feminine. And we can respect the masculine, but we don't have to push, you know, even when we menstruate. Like, I'm almost 52, my periods are perfect. I still give myself time. I'm on my period, I have to go easy on myself. I don't have to book all these meetings, all these patients. You know, so often there's a phrase, is your wellness company making you sick? It doesn't matter what you do, it can still make you unwell if you don't have the balance. So I think, you know, back before I was healed, I became very aggressive, and I was working at Third Space Medicine in London, and I was like never getting married and off to India and Africa all the time and saving the babies and the HIV orphans, and I was like, my whole life was like, and then I realized, oh, okay, I can actually still help the babies and do all I need to do, but I can be my authentic self. I don't need to be a man, I don't need to grow a beard, I don't need to grow a testicle. I can actually be my power as a woman, and I can own that, own my story, use it to encourage other women, and you can have it all. If you just allow yourself that, your true colours, if you like, but if you just say, okay, and my mum said this to me years ago when I had eating disorders. She said, just run your race. Don't look to the left or to the right. Your race is yours. Whether you get this far, this far, this far, it doesn't matter. It's yours. No one can steal it. Don't compare yourself to other girls, you know, especially with eating disorders, being too skinny, too fat, whatever. Just run your race. No one can steal it. It's got your name on it. It's your baton. And just enjoy it. But no one can steal your destiny. So I think there's a lot of peace and comfort in that.
Yeah, and again, you know, something that I do say frequently to my clients is that there is so much strength in our gentleness. We don't have to, exactly as you're saying, we can still achieve without the lapels and without the shoulder pads. I'm very glad of that. But again, going back now, as I've asked all previous guests, going back to your childlike self, in your world back in Australia, where you know you have a successful business, you've also worked with Emma McPherson.
Yeah, she's my business partner in Wellco.
Yeah.
She came to me as a patient 12 years ago, and I helped her get well, and then she asked me to develop the Wellco line, and we became business partners. We just had a 10-year anniversary together a few weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But again, you know, for me, huge imposter syndrome in that you have come here to talk at Rayya's Talks, Iman. You know, actually, it's just incredible that you are achieving so much, and that's almost giving us the power to say, yeah, we can do this and we can do it together.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just a little girl, grew up on a farm, you know, riding horses all my life, and you know, born in Sydney, as I said, half English, half Aussie.
Where do you think that resilience came from then? Because again, with my work, it is so much about teaching our children about resilience, because resilience is not born, resilience is learned. There was a very worrying article came out in The Guardian last week saying about, you know, the number of children that are going to school at the age of 4, they're not potty trained.
Wow.
They can't, a very large percentage, it's very worrying. They can't feed themselves, they need assistance with feeding. A very large percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speech delay, and also they don't know how to turn the page of the book, they keep swiping.
Oh.
So, if we're looking at resilience, where has that resilience come from that you have acquired? Where was it?
I think it is monkey see, monkey do, isn't it? We can tell our children anything. They watch us, even with our friend passing away a few years ago. I thought, I need to really put my big girl pants on, and I need to walk this out, and they need to watch me walk through this grief and not lose my faith and not lose my centre. And I had a moment. Believe me, and I ate way too much cheese and bread and put on 5 kilos. But I was like, I'm allowed to. Like, you know, the eating disorder was healed. But I think that it really is our children. So I think it came from my parents. They were orphans, actually, and self-made. And I think I just saw that, and they stuck together. As parents, even if they didn't always agree, they were like, even if we tried to come and maneuver, they were on the same team. And I think that, you know, being true to your values, or if you're in a relationship, then sticking together, and then really it is monkey see, monkey do. We can't tell our children one thing and do another, because they are watching. It's just osmosis. And I think...
And mirror neurons.
Yeah.
Those mirror neurons are incredible.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you don't like broccoli, or if you don't like, I don't know, beetroot, and you're bringing it to your little one saying, oh, this is amazing food, because it is, but you have just activated those mirror neurons, and your child is actually connected to, Mommy doesn't like this, this is horrible.
Yeah.
So our children, children do what children see.
Yeah, they see us exercise, they see us laugh, they see my husband and I might have an argument, but they always see we don't go to bed angry, we come in, we apologise, we own it. We make mistakes, we put our hand up, you know what, Mummy and Dad didn't handle that very well at all, we apologise. You know, I think owning your stuff, being transparent, and really encourage them.
Did you, because I'm just, you know, there's a number of parents here who've got young children, and I'm just interested, did you see that with your parents? Because I think where we are now, you owning those feelings and that situation and taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
I don't believe it was there years ago.
No, they always stuck together. They didn't own their stuff. They just didn't know. They do now. They're amazing now. But they always, at least, they were solid and they stuck together. And even if one of them didn't believe, I think we always knew we had that base. I think, no, they didn't put their hand up when they made a mistake. They just didn't have the tools. Yeah. So I think that's, you know, and I think if we're blessed, we can stand on our parents' shoulders if we allow it. And we can look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we can stand, and then our children can stand on our shoulders. If we allow it. You know, as I said, our parents do the best they could with what they have. But no, they wouldn't kind of put their hand up and own their stuff, but they were always, you know, together, and we always knew with that foundation. So I think, and my dad was a pilot for many years, and he used to just say to me, you know, go and sim, keep on climbing those mountains. And then particularly when I finally told them years later after the abuse, because I hid it because he said that he'd kill my family if I told anybody. Of course, the reaction of your dad is, I'm going to kill him. I can't kill him. I need to pay someone. Then I'll go to jail. How am I going to do this? Right, straight to the UK. And having that foundation was amazing. And having the other passport catapulted me. You know, they just kind of like said, right, the only way out. So I think the resilience comes from that foundation of my parents believing in me and always cheering me on.
So yeah. I think that is such a wonderful note to end on, in that, again, it's about compassion, it's about resilience, and it's about moving forward in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure that everyone has taken so much from it. And just as a result of all the things that you have revealed, we'll be kinder to ourselves, because that's what we need to do as women. On International Women's Day, we need to be kinder to ourselves and know that it's okay. Yeah, and it's quite hard to do that. So I tell my clients, one of my best friends, Sarah Glover, we met on a bus in Africa doing charity work in Cambridge, Sezi. I always say you already have a blueprint with someone that you love, because self-love is hard. What is that, a manicure or pedicure? But you have a blueprint with someone you love and you speak lovingly to them and they speak to you. So every time you kind of have that inner voice or inner critic, what would Sezi say to me right now? She'd say, go Sim, you're doing it, you're amazing, oh my gosh. You know, like I would say to her. So I think just borrow the blueprint of one of your best friends, and that's one of the best ways to reset your mind, because it's a real friendship, it's a real love, and you can just simply, you know, talk to yourself like your best friend would. That is really where my healing started, because my inner critic was so, she was out of control. So I think that's a really good practical way of just talking to yourself like you would your best friend, because the blueprint exists, you just need to practice it. And we do talk about, you know, finding your tribe, and it is very important to find the persons who you connect with the most, and allow them to let you be who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Really appreciated it. Thank you.
Focused and got a lot of education on dental sleep medicine, and basically I look at how you breathe, especially when you sleep, and if there are any factors that we can change or improve, starting from children as little as 4, going up all the way to adults. And I really am on that mission, mostly to educate how important it is to breathe through our nose. I don't know how I became an adult without knowing that, and then realized that most people around me don't seem to know that it's important for children as well as adults to only breathe through the nose unless one's sick. Women and sleep, we're here today on International Women's Day, and I've tailored this presentation to talk about how these gender differences play a role, of course, in all aspects of our life, but also with our sleep and breathing, and how we need to be aware if we are affected in some aspects more than others. Biological differences, we are more prone to anxiety and result in lesser sleep from that. Maternal responsibilities, as we have kids, women will take the brunt of losing sleep at night in most homes. There's gender disparities in the social framework as well, where there is a larger chores responsibility on women, which is often sacrificed into their sleep. We are more likely to suffer from restless leg syndrome, narcolepsy, obstructive sleep apnea, and then pregnancy and menopause. Let's not even get there with how badly it affects our sleep. I'm going to divert from a little bit to talk about what is most passionate to me about what does mouth breathing look like, because I find that most parents, most women are not aware. They're like, oh, it's okay to have the lips at rest. So this has become a very common picture for us, whether it's babies or it's adults, to have this always open lip posture. And this does not allow for effective nasal breathing in children. It doesn't allow for effective growth. And this, while it is extremely common, is not normal and not desirable. So why is mouth breathing even a problem? This is a very long slide, but I'm just going to give you the top bits of it, that mouth breathing can dehydrate your body by about 42%. If you take the role of the nose away, the nose has very specific functions on filtering, on humidifying, on not making you sick. It also, like mouth breathing, is like over breathing. You're dumping out large amounts of carbon dioxide. If you struggle with exercise, with cardio exercise, it's not about your strength, it's more likely about your breathing. Bad breath, gum disease, cavities, all that is like, okay, secondary to it. But it also affects your gut health. This part of your body is your first part of your digestive tract, and you cannot change your microbiome unless you are sealing this part. Huge connections with ADHD-like symptoms. If you are mouth breathing while you're asleep, you're not going through the normal stages of sleep, and therefore you are more tired by day. In children, it affects the growth of the jaws and can cause crooked teeth as well. But what I talk about a lot is this array of sleep disordered breathing, to say we're on a spectrum, and it starts out with mouth breathing, and it is a bit of a cascade till it results in obstructive sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea, OSA, is a condition where you actually have gaps in your breathing and you stop breathing while you sleep. But that comes, okay, for some of us it comes later in life, but know that if you start out with mouth breathing, you've put yourself in this domino effect cascade. This is the easy symptom to spot and solve, then wait for things to get worse. I kind of put it that today medicine is on the same spectrum with cardiovascular disease, but obstructive sleep apnea is the heart attack. And can you imagine going around for decades telling people that their high blood pressure, their cholesterol, none of that mattered, please come back for treatment when you have the heart attack. So thankfully we have changed that in the cardiovascular spectrum, but we haven't changed it where sleep disorders and OSA is concerned. So women and OSA have that special relationship. We are significantly underdiagnosed. We are not taken seriously by practitioners because the typical picture of sleep apnea is a fat individual with a big neck, male and older. But it's not true that we don't suffer with sleep apnea. We could have the signs around it. Women with sleep apnea are not going to present so much with waking up in the night to use the bathroom or severe snoring. They tend to have symptoms like pain, anxiety, and depression, even PTSD. About 50% of patients, women with sleep apnea, will actually present with pain, anxiety, or depression. We also tend to not take our health very seriously. We have so many other responsibilities, and therefore we blame the fatigue that comes from sleep apnea or even mouth breathing on other sources. And research in 2008 showed that women with sleep disordered breathing are actually much more likely to be diagnosed with depression than those not. And we don't tend to get referrals very easy. I know women who go to the ENT with snoring and will be just given a spray instead of given a sleep test to check if they have sleep apnea or not. So, anyone in your circles who are mouth breathing, snoring, should delve deeper into what's going on. PCOS, don't know why that happened to the S. Most common endocrine disease, 1 in 10 women are affected. But when we compare the prevalence of OSA in women of general population and those with PCOS, it's about 6% in healthy patients, and about 35% of women with PCOS will have OSA. That's huge. I don't think any of us really pay attention to that. Also, like PCOS causes lower progesterone levels in our body and increases the pain in the joints a lot. This is a very common feature in women these days with bruxing, and they have nasal issues, but they also have it's a very, very chronic pain, more than knees or lower back. The joint pain is something that a lot of women live with. I was going to get into pregnancy, but before pregnancy, women with OSA have a 2 times greater risk of infertility. There's so many of us who have struggled with fertility issues and have focused on so many other aspects of health, but OSA has really been left out. I also wanted to talk a little bit about, I haven't made slides after this, so I'm just going to run you through my thoughts. But when women in pregnancy are going to put on weight, are going to have additional blood volume, which congests our nose, congests our throats as well, and your incidence of snoring is going to increase. But if along with this, the OSA had to increase, this amount of sleep apnea, you have more chances of having low birth weight babies, complications in pregnancy, and hypertension around it. I'm going to get to what can you do for you, and then what you can do for your children. I think awareness is always the first step, to know that there are solutions out there around your breathing. You know, first to think, are you mouth breathing by day? Do you wake up with a dry mouth at night? You know, when you wake up in the morning, are your lips chapped and is your mouth dry? Did you actually have to just close your mouth there? Those things are not normal, and we need to start changing that. You can seek help with very natural, holistic methods around nasal rinsing, around looking at the size of your jaws and tongue position. It's kind of like physiotherapy, but for the oral musculature, and that can greatly improve fatigue levels. I don't talk about mouth taping because I do advise that people, are you all aware of mouth taping? Has anybody heard of it in the audience? Okay, all right, thank you, Dr. Simone. It's a concept that's really big on TikTok, actually. Started from there. We do use it in the medicine field. It talks about sleeping with the tape on your mouth, because we recognize that if you breathe through your nose all night long, there are lots of benefits from it. No doubt, there are people playing tennis games at professional level with tapes on their mouth, running with tapes on their mouth. Nasal breathing does have all those benefits. But if you are already snoring or severely mouth breathing, I don't advise that without medical help. What can you do for your children? It is shocking every day in the practice, and it was the same case with me as well. We don't actually watch our children while they sleep. You know, it's very common for them to have their own rooms. We can't, I for one couldn't wait to run out of the room as soon as they were asleep, and you know, just hope they slept through till the morning. But it is important to kind of go in and check just before you go to bed. There are lots of children who are snoring, sleeping with their mouth open, grinding their teeth, or at least just are noisy, sleeping in restless positions, head turned up. They are the picture for us of a child who's not able to breathe well, but because we don't have parents knowing what that picture looks like, we're missing out on early treatment for your children. So it's a good idea to watch them when they're distracted, when they're reading a book, when they're watching TV, when they're just playing Lego, something like that. Mouth should not hang low like that. Lips should always be sealed. And keep colds and coughs at bay with nasal rinsing again. You know, remind them to close their mouths if they're of that age. Lots of little tips and tricks that we can talk further about at another time around that. All right? Great. Thank you. Ran through that. My master's. I went to my first ever job with a child, and as I watched my male peers all accelerate with, you know, being able to put those 12-hour days in, etc., I felt held back with a baby, and then a second baby. And it took a few years to be able to actually say, this is not the same journey, and like Dr. Simone said, this is my race, and I will need to stop comparing with the other gender constantly and work on using my gender's benefits to my advantage before I can do that.
And it is, again, very much like Dr. Simone was saying about how trying not to compare ourselves, but I think in the world of social media now, it is very, very hard. And the more that we can centre ourselves and quieten that inner voice that says you should be here, you should be doing this, it's trying to get rid of that should have. So my last question to you is, if, you know, with younger generations that are coming up through what appears to be the acceleration path within the field of dentistry, what advice would you give to women, particularly on International Women's Day? What advice would you give them about seeing the path of their careers, and just generally how would they navigate that?
I think that the few things that I learned that really helped me along the last few years was, one, to kind of check in with myself on what aspects of my career were actually giving me joy. So to recognize and then prioritize to do more of what gave me joy. Second was to outsource everything else. So whether that was like certain duties at home, whatever it was, that we do a lot as women, even in our career, even at homes, because we are supposed to. And to kind of break that out to say, I'm an individual, and what out of this gives me joy versus not. For example, in my career, I realized giving people these big veneers with fake smiles was not giving me joy after some point. I wanted to treat people more holistically and as a whole body. That was one. The second, I personally felt really, and I used to think that this was, because I was Indian and, our men were conditioned a certain way. I think a long time later I realized men everywhere are the same and women everywhere are the same. And it was to sort of keep standing up for the fact that my career is important, my joy is important. While I might have taken a step back right now because I'm working lesser hours, I'm focusing more on the children, let's not forget that that is not my goal and my mission in life, that I'm going to feel more complete and I'm going to be able to give all of you more if you give me and fill certain parts that allow me to prioritize my joy more, which in my case was with my career, because no matter what, I was not okay to be left behind in that race. I just had to create my own path in my own race. And that's a work in progress, right? You're just moving along a little bit at a time. But I think it's important for women in high education professions to know that, because we come out at a point where it is suddenly become a choice around having the family, getting married, having children, or giving your work your all. And I've always worked a 4-day week. I have always, in the men's landscape, felt like I'm not doing enough. And I'm not to be taken seriously because I don't put in that 60-hour work week that most men in my profession do. And it took a lot of inner work, and I want to spread that message to other women in my profession, that you could be taking your profession seriously even while you have balance and you're doing more with it.
And that is such an important note to end on, in that it's recognizing as women we are really incredible in terms of our time management. And very often, we might not put the 60 hours in as such, but actually in those 30 hours that we are working, our 30 hours are as productive in terms of efficiency and outcome as the 60 hours. And it's also, again, like something that has featured throughout the whole of the talks that we've had this morning, very much about having compassion for ourselves, being the best role model for our children, so that our children know that they have choices, and that's all that we can be, is to show our children that we can have the choices. So thank you so much for sharing this really wonderful presentation and highlighting the importance of mouth breathing, because the benefits of it are of...
Thank you for having me, Julie.
Thank you so much. My next guest I'm going to introduce really comes around because I remember reading and listening to many, many stories about what was happening in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And of course we all know about the terrible things that have happened there. But at some point, one of the countries that were, and not that we would particularly think of, but one of the countries who was trying to assist, I remember that their goal was to include the men. And they made it very, very clear that in order to allow women to have education, to allow women to have the freedom, we needed to get the men on board. And without that, then we were lost. And I remember it stayed with me, really stayed with me. And when we were talking about organising the event today, and we had the opportunity for you to come along, I thought, this was my part in inclusivity and, everyone working together for the same goal. And so, thank you so much for coming. Now,
Pleasure.
I would love you to give a brief introduction of yourself and what you do.
Good morning, everyone. Or shall we say good afternoon? I don't know what time it is. It's almost
Morning.
12.
Still morning.
Still morning.
Still morning.
Okay. My name is Muhammad Cho. Full name Muhammad Abdul Fattah Cho. Everybody calls me Cho Time. That's my ring name when I represented Team GB in Taekwondo. Thank you. Represented Team GB over a decade. learned martial art for over 25 years. My father was the one who taught me the sport, and it's kind of a family heritage more than anything else. It was a sport that kind of paved the way for us as a family, shall we say. So my father introduced the sport to, I would say, back in the 60s, 70s. And it was a sport, actually my granddad told him he didn't want him doing it because he said it was violent. There's a lot of kicking and punching involved. He doesn't want to see his face get smashed in. There was all of this stuff. So granddad was really based on peace. But he didn't know there was an aspect of discipline. There was an aspect of respect, aspect of being able to really grow as a character, really grow as a person and an individual. So he didn't know that aspect of the sport. So he had to really be educated to understand what Taekwondo does for an individual, even for toddlers, for elders as well. So the moment when he saw my dad go to a tournament and he got his medal around his neck, my dad actually hid that medal for him not to see it. But unfortunately, as TV was documenting the competition, he managed to see the tournament and saw my dad winning this medal. There was a great pride and great sense that when he saw his child on the podium and representing the community, representing the family, he was really happy to see. So he took an interest to be able to find out more. And when he saw the way my dad was a very respectable individual in our sport, somebody who everybody takes light to because the way he teaches, the way he shares the sport, the way he brings the community together, and that's what the sport really did. So, so as a child, he was my icon, he was my idol, and he was the one that really brought the sport on to take it to, shall we say, around the world for me more than anything else.
Okay, and so he was your inspiration.
That's right.
And now where you are in terms of your work.
Yes.
Expand a little bit about your work now here in Dubai.
So I'm now a coach. Opened a centre up in Ankuz, and Gemma's little one, we call him Sandini, who trains with us, Sandro, that's his nickname that we gave him. So we opened an Olympic combat centre over there, which allows children and also teenagers to be able to grow. We grow their confidence through teaching them Taekwondo. So the aspect of what my dad taught me, I really made a program around it and how to develop it to be able to teach our little ones and adults as well at the same time. So it's under a year. We now have roughly about 270 students with 4 coaches, Olympic coaches, who are now giving out the same platform, shall we say, what my dad taught me, and they're getting taught that and then teaching it to the kids, and we're taking it around now to different places in the city.
So just in terms of you being a coach in terms of Taekwondo, I have always been struck, certainly within my work of dealing with families,
yes,
and of course adults. I remember one family I was working with, and again it was a number of years ago here in Dubai. The father was born in Lebanon but grew up in the Bronx.
Yes, yes.
And he talked about how he had a really, really difficult, very difficult relationship with his father.
Yes.
And yet the one thing, I'm sure there was many, but he was still on his healing journey, I think, but the one thing that he was so grateful for was the fact that his father made him do the Taekwondo.
That's right, forced him. Yeah.
Now, but what he saw was that, back in the Bronx, back then, of his 18 to 19 friends, he was the only one that was successful in his career and happily married, because the remaining 18, 17 or 19 of them, they either died of drugs overdose, or all these different things. And what he said about this was about the discipline.
Yes.
The discipline that it taught him from being a child, he has brought that into his adult life. And again, I think as parents, it's really, really difficult when our children are small, knowing what is going to help them. It's that mindfulness. If we again look at the origins of the word discipline. Now discipline, when we talk about discipline for adults, we see it as a real positive. We see it as, they're really good and disciplined at going to the gym, not me, but unfortunately, I'd like to, but, and disciplined at, what they eat and so on. So it's really positive. But when we refer to discipline with our children, it's always seen as a negative. And yet the origins of the word discipline come from the word disciple, to teach.
That's right.
And one of our greatest roles
Yeah.
is to teach. So in your day-to-day with our children...
You're giving me goosebumps. I'm just wondering, how did you know that? Because that phrase, I don't think a lot of people actually know what that meaning of discipline is. So really, truly, it's remarkable. Really, really remarkable. But you are right on. Discipline is disciple. That's the actual phrase of the word. And when you transcend that into being able to give order and command and being able to adjust to it, you tend to find yourself growing at a fast pace, simply because you just want to be challenged more and more and more. So in our program that's been created, we always say, if you start from a young age, by the time they get to our age, they already have that skill set to be able to grow and literally go through any challenges. I think nowadays we tend to be able to hold our children back when they're facing, so we say, challenges and obstacles, when really and truly we should see challenges as an opportunity to be able to grow. So facing your fears, being able to find solution within it, and that's what the sports really does. So being in the middle of the ring, being taught how to kick, how to defend, how to be able to be in front of an opponent, how to find what's their weaknesses, what's their strength, how can I overcome this person. It really takes the mind, body and soul to be able to do that. And when you practice that from a young age and you give them that aspect, they'll grow to be able to learn how to use it, when to use it, when it's the right time to use it. And then it gets to a point where they start teaching it as well. So it's really shall we say, a family heirloom more than anything else, when you start them from a young age. So by the time they get to our age, they're already set for the world.
Now, we were talking before about neuroplasticity and the hardwiring of the brain, and exactly that. When we start to implement these practices with our children, it then becomes firmly rooted in the hardwiring of our children's brain.
That's right.
And so the problems that they're encountering as children in the classroom or in the playground, those problems get bigger.
That's right.
And if we can show them how to deal with these problems now, they will be able to survive and thrive in the real world.
You know what's funny? The funny thing is when I was introduced in Taekwondo, I was getting bullied at school. I was one of the tallest people there. I did not look like this, obviously. So I was really targeted at school. And it's challenging because I came from Africa at the age of 8 years old. West Africa is where I was born, in Ivory Coast. We just recently won the African Championship as well, so thought I'd just put that in there. So when I came to the country, didn't speak the language, didn't know anything about the culture aspect, so it was really a culture shock for me. Putting into an English school, it's really survival of the fittest when you go to primary school, right? So it's one of the things where I ended up in this circle of being pushed around, and I couldn't really defend myself, really and truly, and I didn't know how to. I couldn't use any words, even trying to give him some kind of sign language or something, like I come in peace. It just didn't know how it worked. So with that, knowing my father knew Taekwondo, I wanted him to teach me that, because I wanted to utilize that against those bullies. That was one of the means for it. And his thought was, if he did that at the beginning, it wouldn't work. So he told me what he's going to do is teach me the discipline side first before I can learn how to kick and punch. So the discipline aspect is actually sitting down with your child and being able to speak to them, give them some questions and see what the response will be. How can you be able to face these challenges? What would you do? Who do you go to? Who are your, shall we say, your support system? These are the little things that kids really pick up very quickly the moment when you start speaking to them. And this is what my dad did to me. So there was a phase of questions before we even went into the gym to kick and punch. And once he gave me solutions and problem solving, and when that started, it gave me a different perspective. The kicking and punching became more enjoyable simply because I didn't even have to use that. All I had to do was being able to be smart. So with that aspect of communication with your teachers, it allowed me to be able to make those bullies become my friends. Because why? Because I had the time frame of being able to be taught how to communicate, how to be able to solve this situation with just a simple conversation.
Now, again, I mean, there's so many threads there in terms of you didn't have to resort to the kicking and the punching, because we realised, and it is the power of the mind.
Right.
But if we're looking now, for example, at boys and girls.
Yes.
So we know that boys are very
testosterone-led. They're very physical. Again, I can remember being at an appointment and the mummy saying about how the little boy was being very aggressive.
Yeah.
And the second I said, he's not being aggressive, he's just being physical. And that completely changed her whole persona.
Yeah.
And she stopped about to what she was going to do. So we know boys are very testosterone-led and girls are very oxytocin-led.
That's right, that's right.
Now, when you have, because you have girls and boys within your, how does that differ? What do you see in how children respond, be it male or female?
I tend to think, this is my opinion, the female are very fast learning, they get it very quickly, and they tend to be, shall we say, they become more successful quickly than boys. The reason why, when you look at the result factor, the stats that we have in our sports today is that we have more females in our sport than what we have males. That just goes to show. We have the female world championship, we have the female world combat games, but we don't have that for the males. We only have that only for the females, and it's been happening generations now. And we have the capability of a female being able to become Olympic champions 10 times harder than what it is for male, simply because there's vast of them. So they have to really go through this challenge to be able to get to the other side. So when you see that, the aspect of the challenges that they have to face is far much more than what a male does, simply because a lot of people have come into that stead. So we came to an understanding that a lot of practice comes from a female perspective to be able to give it to the male, because why? It calms them down, gets them to understand how to use their brain, because we're all out there a lot of the time, and that's what allows shall we say, the males to be able to see two sides of the fence rather than just the one. So in my family tree, we have more females than males. I'm more of a mummy's boy, more than anything else, which is something I grew up as like that. But the thing is that with my dad being the discipline aspect, I'm putting on the, shall we say, the strict of how to being able to conduct yourself. And my mother giving me the loving and care and how to be able to be sweet. It kind of molded me to being able to see the both sides of how to teach. For me, becoming a teacher was actually a factor that I needed to learn both sides and actually be able to accept it on both sides. So I have a really tactical way of how to being able to teach, just simply because I had that teaching from both of them. And I believe I did not have that contact, so we say that kind of teaching aspect from the female perspective, I would have actually been a testosterone type of teacher. And that's not really what we're looking for today. We really want to be able to mold, to understand how to teach the different aspect of the male and females.
And again, you know, as you were saying, it is about recognizing and celebrating what makes us different, but actually what together we're going to be an even stronger team.
100%.
Which is, you know, I think quite brave of you to come today for an International Women's event. What, you know, in accepting it, why did you accept it? I'm intrigued to know why you accept it. I mean, I'm absolutely delighted, but why did you accept it?
Everyone sat here thinking, what is he doing here? But for me, it's important. The reason why I'm here is because of my mothers. And yes, plural, so I have more than one mum. My parents are separated, and both of them are married. And so I have two mums, simply because they were both two mums who brought me up. The mother in Africa is, shall we say, she's a warrior, she's a fighter. Simply because of where we come from, we did not have the ends meet from a day-to-day aspect. So she really had to grind to being able to get what we need. So me growing up was very difficult because we didn't have the luxury, we didn't have, shall we say, the financial aspect to being able to, shall we say, cater to what we see the children here today. So she really fought the way to being able to give that, shall we say, the childhood that we wanted. And then you have my British mum, who's in England, obviously completely different education, complete different culture. And she taught me the sweetness, the care, the being able to communicate. Communication did not come from my dad, it actually came from my mum. My dad was very hard on, my mum was very like, here's A and B, choose. So those choices that always came from my mum. So this teaching was from two great women, two different kind of women, who gave me that kind of education. So whenever I refer back to me as a person, I never say it's one person, I've always said two. And whenever I say I've got two mums, how's that possible? And have to explain the story to them. So that's the aspect of my education as a whole. It took 2 people to make me become an Olympian. It took 2 people for me to become a world champion. It took me two people to be able to be the person who I am. And without them 2, I wouldn't be the person who I am.
Oh, I think... so many threads are being woven here, from our first speaker to yourself, where we're talking about family and the importance of family. We are talking about the value of all of us, be it mother, father, brother, sister, aunt, uncle.
Yes.
The family is what really keeps us together.
Absolutely.
And talking about that discipline and how important that discipline is for our children to see it from us, but to see it in a really positive line. And again, going back to your work and working with children, it's about our children being able to see, because I think that they live in a world now which is all about instant gratification. Everything is like now. And we are really beginning to lose the value of understanding about waiting. And that's what your work is very much doing, in that helping our children understand about that delayed gratification.
That's right.
I'm sure a lot of you know about this really wonderful study called the Marshmallow Study. Now, the Marshmallow Study was carried out late 50s, early 1960s, and it talks about how you put a marshmallow to a toddler and ask them to wait for 1 minute. And then you go back and offer another. Now, the children who had the ability to wait, what the study revealed was that they would grow up to be adults who were successful in every aspect of their being, be it professionally, be it personally, have greatest number of friends and so on. So 3 or 4 years ago, they decided to review it because they felt there wasn't enough diversity now because of the onset of social media and screen. So they went back to all the parents and anyone who worked with children, from teachers to doctors, everyone. And the main crux of the question was, do you think children of today have worse instant gratification, or do you think it's better? 83% of the people that were part of the questionnaire, they said it was definitely worse. Now, to their absolute shock, the study that they were doing revealed children of today, their delayed gratification is actually better. Now, they were trying to ask, why did we think that was? And they're still not sure yet, but certainly all the things they're looking at. And it was saying that we as parents, or you with particularly young children, as parents, you're actually giving your children a choice. Now, what's important is it's only 2. And particularly depending on where our children are developmentally, we can't give them any more than 2 because that overwhelms their brain. So 2 choices is really important because it helps them make, gives them that practice for decision making in the future. So again, all these things that you brought in about your parents and giving you the choices, it's either this or that, it can feel a little bit restrictive, but actually we're just meeting our children where they are at, just like your parents knew to meet you. So again, within your work with children, you're helping to build that hardwiring of the brain.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I've always said to myself, I think any challenges that we tend to be able to see, what are the benefits in it, right? Because you want to be guidance at the end of the day, and children are going to be children, regardless. And if you look at our spectrum of how we spend our day with our children, we have to say that they spend more time, should we say, with tutors, teachers, activities than what probably we'll do at home, right? We can all agree to that, right? So it's very important to be selective in the environment that we put them in, because the people who are going to be teaching them, it's going to be very important for them to pick up a skill set that's going to mold them to being able to make the right choices. You can take him to any football club, you can take him to any basketball club, any activities outside.
I'm afraid.
You can take him to any other activities, but if you don't study the coaches, if you don't study their background and what they teach, then you might be putting them into a bad environment, and that will follow through coming home. So this is why it's very important to being able to don't be too quick to being able just to pay for the activity and be like, off you go. And that's an hour for me to being able to be away before I go and pick you back up. Be the person to be able to know who are these teachers. So those teachers can be able to have the same value and concept as you. So your child's always coming back home to have the same understanding rather than having a different education and another education at home. So it has to actually link for you to being able to say, okay, my child is in the right environment. So that's my opinion. It's not a world study. It's what I've saw over the course of time. So this is why I said our environment or where our children comes from is very important. I'm very selective with our coaches. The coaches that I select to be able to be in an environment are Olympians, are world champions, are continental champions. So they spend decades in being able to go through challenges and obstacles. So they know what it feels like to be a child. So when they come through their door, they have that time. They have that patience to being able to give them the training that they need so they can grow in the right way. And that's what Olympic combat is all about. So what you just said just there in regard to those choices that's made, I've always said it's about the environment that we put them into for them to being able to make the right choices.
Yeah, and again, you know, if we're looking as parents,
yeah.
One of our greatest roles as well, apart from teaching and being our children's teachers, is also being their leader. And I think, you know, at present, there's a real battle for parents because this is not in control with our children. This is about being our children's leader.
Yep.
Because we have to advocate for them because they're not able to do it yet.
That's right.
So again, it's about doing your homework to make sure that the choices that we make are the best that we can make for our children.
That's right, yeah.
But it is also really hard to be able to do that. So on a final note, so one of the questions that I have been asking, if you were to go back and speak to your former self, your childlike self, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you can give, particularly here on International Women's Day? What would that advice be to your childlike self?
Oh, that's a very good question. If I have to,
How do you do?
Go back. I would have loved to take my two mums round to all my, so we say, to all my competition with me, because they were my support system. My heart's actually beating here when I'm saying this.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Simply because I think I grew up too quickly, and then I left home at a very young age. So I really was on the phone to them quite more than their presence of being there. So I will say probably I spent a good quality amount of time with being with them, but I would have loved them to actually be present when I was traveling around the world representing the country, because I think that support system, I don't know, maybe it could have made me won 2 Olympic medal, maybe it could have made me won more championship, maybe I don't know, probably been eating the right food and all of this stuff. So there's all that aspect, because they really gave me the belief and power, like to really conquer the world, and having them just on the phone wasn't enough for that period. But I think if I had to go back, that's probably one of the things that just happened with me more.
And I think this was just one of the most beautiful moments in that you really exposed your vulnerability.
Absolutely.
And fragility, and that's again about making the best world that we can be.
Yeah.
But you also reminded me of something that, so I'm Irish, and I remember many, many years ago when my girls were very small, my 3 daughters, so my heart's going too, and they would be kind of 3, 6 and 9, something like that. And I was reading a book by an Irish scholar called James Joyce. And you don't read James Joyce, you plough through it.
Yeah.
But anyway, in that book, he was talking about his lover, but he said, I want my greatest presence to be felt in my absence.
Wow. Wow.
And I thought, that's it. That's what I want.
I'm going to have to steal that one.
I can't look at my daughter because I'll just cry. But honestly, when I read that, I was thinking, that's it. That's what I want. I want my children to know wherever they are, whatever they're doing, I'm right there beside them. And I think that's enough for all of us, you know, mother or father, absolutely steal it, because it's, again, this is what we're all about. This is what nurture is about, which is sharing of knowledge. Anything that I have is not mine. Yeah. It's mine to give and to share. just like yours is, where we're all trying to do the best that we can, having the biggest impact to make this world a better place. And we're always hearing about all the terrible things that are going on, and yet, if we look at today, all the people we've had here is just incredible. So thank you so much for joining us, and what a beautiful note to end on. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to end real quickly, I really would like to say thank you for having me here, and really just to echo this message to all of you in here, be proud of yourself. Why do I say that? Be proud of who you are, be proud of what you achieved, whether it's big, whether it's small, be proud, simply because the journey that you've been through, nobody knows it but you, and that journey is your power hold of who you are today. And whatever you do, wherever you go, take that with you. Take that with you, just simply because that's what allows you to become the real truth of you. So do not allow that to being able to be in an emotional drain. Do not allow it to be able to take you away from what you want to achieve. There is still time. There is still time. So push through, power through, and do what's right for you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're having almost like a wrap-up of all the wonderful conversations that we've had this morning. Now, I also wear many hats, but without question, my most important hat is to be a mother, which is not devaluing anything else that I do, but for me, from being a very small child, I always knew that that's what I wanted to be, which was a mother. And again, that's not putting any other pressure, because I see it. I see mothers who really struggle with this idea, and they feel, because again of societal pressure, they feel that they have to be this person, and what does this person look like, and yet it's not them. But as I say, I have many hats. A mother, a wife, and also this year, in April, I will be celebrating my 40th wedding anniversary.
What's the secret?
Well, I joke that I still like him. But I really do like him. And just now, you know, there's a couple of messages on my phone. So it's just trying to be together as much as you can. And like Dr. Simone was saying, that with her PhD, she's doing it with her and her husband. I think that's the secret, Gemma. I think it's trying to do things together, still be the person that you are. But many years ago, I worked as a midwife, and it was one of the most beautiful jobs that I have ever experienced. To be there at the moment when this human being enters the world for the very, very first time is very, very special. And I mean, I've delivered hundreds and hundreds of babies, not thousands, because of the role that all of us have. So our role as a mother and a parent, and that's why it wasn't thousands, but it was hundreds. But I truly never ever took it for granted about being at the birth of this new little being, and the privilege of being with that family when this little person came into the world. So that was one of my roles. And we say, you know, once a midwife, always a midwife. And again, I see this in my work every single day. I see the struggle of women and how they do feel very isolated. And I see this, thankfully not on a daily occurrence, but I see it frequently, where women don't feel, bye and thank you, where women don't feel supported, where they do feel very isolated, and they don't know who they can turn to. Like, very recently I had a very, very lovely mummy who, she had been breastfeeding her little girl for 2 years, and she wanted to finish. She just couldn't do any more. And there was nowhere that could give her that answer. She tried the paediatrician, she tried the psychologist, she tried the GP. And when she was telling me this, I felt so sad and actually said, why didn't you ask me? But as women, we try so hard and figure things out. And yet, I think that's the beauty of today, is that we don't need to figure out.
We just need to reach out. And I really believe that's one of our greatest strengths that has been part of today. And then I became a health visitor because on that one night where I delivered 8 babies by myself and then came home to my 3 daughters, I knew my cup was completely empty. And I had nothing to give my 3 daughters, and that's not who I wanted to be. But I thought, okay, what am I going to do that will enable me to still have this knowledge that I really want to share with my parents and make their world a better place and an easier place, because it's not about it being perfect, it's about it being easier. So then I went back to university and I became a health visitor. The 4 main components of a health visitor are child psychology, child development, sleep and nutrition. And that's when something really, really ignited in me about the importance of sleep. Now, most of my friends and my family would find that many years ago quite amusing, because I was the person, and I could still do it, I can survive on 4 hours sleep. Not just survive though, I function, really function. And, and yet I know all the science is out there. We need to sleep. Whatever our sleep is, whether we are a 7-hour sleeper or a 9-hour sleeper. So I talk to my parents how we are growing an adult, we're not growing a child. And that's the same with us. Until we take responsibility for our health, and the only thing that is more important than sleeping is breathing. There is nothing more important. Nutrition is going to be compromised if we are not sleeping, because the body can't absorb the nutrients. If we are doing physical exercise, because again, that is also really important, particularly for our mental health. But if we are not sleeping, we are, the percentages, the studies, we are so much more likely to have an injury. So, as we said, without sleep, sleep is the most important thing other than breathing. Now, we also want to know the relevance of sleep with our children. We want to know because we talk about different studies and how important it is, and if you can give your children the gift of sleep, they will take that into their adulthood. And looking at everyone here today, whether it is Iman with her food and the nutrition, whether it is Ashley in terms of discipline and forging her way to be her best role model for her children, whether it's Dr. Simone and all of these, I loved how you said about your train crashes, because that's life. And that's what we want to prepare our children for, whether it's Dr. Tina and the importance of getting that message out there. We want to share this knowledge. And then finally, with Cho, where there was so much beauty that really brought the whole morning together. And I think it's being brave enough to acknowledge who we are, finding what is important to us, really calm that noise down, but only do what you feel that you can do. When I work with my adults with the sleep work, I know that in order for them to get their best sleep and that melatonin not to be disrupted, we all need to come off our devices at least 1 hour before bedtime. And that's because how our circadian rhythm, we need to be awake when it's light, and we need to be asleep when it's dark. And of course, we are dark starved, and that's really not impacting. That's having a massive impact on our sleep. But I know with a lot of the clients that I work with, whether in media or whether you've got children, and saying to come off for 1 hour before bedtime, often just I can't do it, and therefore we don't. But actually what we need to do is find your goal. If you can do 30 minutes, that's a start. Because what we're looking at here is for progress. Because when we strive for perfection, we miss progress. So if you can just take these baby steps to improving your sleep, we know that it will permeate every single aspect of your day. Last week I was talking to a really large fintech company, and I was brought in to talk about sleep. And 250 people globally signed up for that workshop. we're beginning to really understand the importance of sleep, but we still need to be doing so much more, and we need to be walking the talk. And if we can be the best role models around sleep for our children, that is going to really serve them as adults. So all I want to say is thank you so much for coming. I hope there is so many things that you will carry in your heart from today, because I know I have. And I just feel very, very privileged to be part of this community. So,